The National Investor's motto is, you can get information anywhere, but here you get knowledge. And for well over 40 years now, Chris Temple has imparted that knowledge, an unparalleled, understandable, and useful take on the big picture of the markets and of our world. He has been out in front of what you see on the news every day on many themes. More, Chris has taken this macro knowledge and his unique analytical abilities to uncover unique investment opportunities. Often, he has guided his members to big winners in resources, biotech stocks, and more. His talents and connections often getting him into ground floor opportunities before they are discovered. Without further ado, here is Chris with today's topic.
Welcome in, folks. I'm Chris Temple, back with you again, editor and publisher of the National Investor. And today is another, one of the handful of companies in the gold exploration space you want to have as a core part of your portfolio if you like great exploration projects and you like gold for the long term. And that company is Amex Exploration. It's listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol AMX. Here in the US on the OTCQX, it's listed as AMXEF. Victor Cantore, who's my longtime friend, CEO of the company, is going to be joining me in just a second. But before he does, a few of the usual preliminaries, because there's a lot of exciting stuff we're going to talk about, but it's also, at least for the moment, forward-looking stuff. So here on the screen, you see their slide that reminds you that Victor and or myself may be making forward-looking statements. The regulators want us to let you know that. Likewise, here on the screen, you see our slide from National Investor Publishing. Amex Exploration for a while has been a recommendation of mine to our paid members at the National Investor, but from time to time, Amex and other companies will pay us to do some follow-on media work, copywriting and whatnot, of which this video is a part. So we want to let you know that we're compensated for this, but again, that well prior to that, on its merits, which you're going to learn a lot more about today if you don't know already. Amex it made it to my recommended list. One of the reasons for that is that Victor, for those of you that want to look him up later on Amex's website or elsewhere, is if he follows one of those themes that I stress from time to time. You always want to bet on a good jockey. Horses are good, horse flesh is important, projects are important, but a guy that's been around the block a few times and has got other successful projects under his belt bears special attention, and Victor meets that category, fits in that category. As well, you're going to learn more about the Perron Project, which is the core project that Amex has. It's in an area in Eastern Canada, the Abitibi. The project literally hugs the border between Ontario and Quebec. And this has been one of, and I've covered a couple stories like this recently, but this is right up there with them. A company that time and again has got just mind-blowing intercepts, mostly gold, but there's base metals involved more recently, potentially, as you're going to learn as well. It really is a project that has gotten a lot more attention than the typical resource junior. And it's a reason you're going to learn here in a minute why the share price, when we've had this wasteland almost for exploration juniors for quite a while. Amex's share price is up about 50% or so last I looked from its low last fall, as we're recording this on the 15th of February. And it's not just because gold has been fairly strong. Gold has been doing well, but a lot of these stocks still have not. Amex is an exception to that because people are smelling one of the biggest events in the company's history that is upcoming in just about another month or month and a half as we're recording this. And you're going to learn a lot about that from Victor, who I'm going to bring on and introduce to you right now. Victor Cantore, the CEO of Amex Exploration. Victor, good to have you back.
Great to be here like usual.
Well, you have got one of the, and I don't say this about everybody, as you know, but there's a couple of stories I've covered recently, you being one of them, that if you get, you got the fingers of one hand here, and Amex is one of them. If you're bullish long-term on precious metals, gold, but also base metals potentially down the road, if you want the best and premier projects that's going to get the attention of institutions, already has. It's going to get the attention of other larger mining companies. We just saw that again, as you're going to learn. Amex is one of the ones that is going to be one of those fingers on your hand that you want to have as a core of your portfolio. Now, I'm going to get into more of this story. We're going to do a follow-up to this in several weeks' time when Victor and Amex come out with a resource estimate and economic study on the Perron Project, which is going to be a major event for a lot of different reasons. You'll be learning some of them today. You'll be learning others in the next couple or 3 weeks when I put out a written report on the precious metals market, which will also have a profile of Amex. If you're not already on my list to get that, make sure you get on my list for that. So, Victor, let's go back to kind of the beginning. There's kind of a two-part question that people will have, whether they're seasoned precious metals investors or people who are just starting to wake up to the idea that maybe this should be a theme in their portfolio. If they've been listening to me, they know that everything is in short supply going forward. So there's a bullish tailwind that's going to start to manifest itself in the coming months and couple of years for most all metals, including, I think, gold. But tell us what first attracted you as a mining executive and someone who's got some investment savvy in this space to the Perron Project as a starter.
So when we got involved in the Perron Project. There was already Falconbridge was well. So this project was bought from Falconbridge in the late '90s. Agnico Eagle optioned this property from Amex for almost 4 years. We were following it closely, and there was an opportunity to get involved in late 2016, and that's when we got involved. We made the major discovery was made in late 2018. And that's when we started raising the, we basically took many years of exploration data, compiled that, and went after a lot of the a lot of the targets. And I'm humble with that. Well, I'll say, there's hard work, but you gotta get lucky also. So we combined those two together, and here we are today with the major project. It's going to be a world-class project.
Well, it seems clear to everybody who's following this story. And again, I think that's why, in what's still a lousy market for exploration juniors, you guys have perked up notably in the last few months because people have got a pretty educated guess of what's coming here, not too many weeks down the road. But you talk about getting lucky. I mean, I was listening to another interview you gave fairly recently. And even in, I think, was a metallurgical test hole or a structural hole, you didn't even intend to hit gold, and you had over an ounce per ton.
Yes.
Just that's nuts. And look, on the screen here, I've got a couple of different maps that we'll kind of narrate through for folks. Again, especially if you're a seasoned investor in the mining space, even if you're not, it's pretty standard that the best place to find a new mine is in the head frame of an old one, is how one of the old sayings goes. There's not very many zip codes you can be in, or postal codes in Canada, is the area that you're in. You've got world-class projects all the way around. You've got Val-d'Or, Rouyn-Noranda to the south. You've got Timmins to the southwest. You've got Detour Lake is the big one, I think, to the north. And you're right smack in the middle of all of them. And what's remarkable, Victor, is that with the resource you're going to be putting out in not many weeks' time, and this is based on 400,000 meters, I think, roughly, of drilling that you've done, with one of the biggest and most aggressive drill programs on this continent in the last several years. You've still only scratched the surface. You have like 3.5 or 4 kilometers that you've drilled fairly sizably within what, 20 or 22 kilometer overall?
Absolutely. There's a little over, there's 2 main faults, that's about 16 kilometers. And then there's a bunch of subsidiary faults within the Beaupré block, so taking it well over 20 kilometers. The strategy was, as soon as we would make a discovery hole, then we would bring in several drills on there to make sure that we turn it into a deposit. We turned it into a gold zone, and that's how we proceeded. Eldorado's investment, one of the things that they wanted us to continue doing aggressively was to continue exploring, because they see the exploration potential on the property, where I keep saying that word that I barely scratched the surface on this project so far.
Well, and folks, we need to stress, and since Victor brought it up, we'll talk about El Dorado in just a second here. In the life cycle of any exploration company, you have grassroots exploration. Hopefully, as has been the case with Amex, they can raise sufficient money to really prove up a resource. With that resource estimate is coming not many weeks down the road, as we've said a couple of times already. And of course, the point of the whole thing is to show that you've got a large enough and economic enough asset and resource, be it gold, be it copper, be it whatever. In this case, of course, primarily or nearly exclusively gold. I think it's going to be. You're going to probably come out with a gold equivalent, but it's going to be almost all gold.
No, it's going to be gold.
All gold. Okay.
We're not going to use the equivalent. There is other credits. We really the project does have potential. The project does have a lot of potential for a VMS mine. The reason along this belt there hasn't been many gold discoveries because there was an old mine, a VMS mine that was mined. It was mined from the 1920s till the 1970s. So it was really a VM multi-metal exploration going on, and not specifically for gold. So I don't want to confuse the story. It's going to be gold. We're going to put out an economic study. We're going to put out an economic study based on gold. The resource is going to be gold, and the rest will just be a bonus.
Okay, and we'll get to that potential for that down the road in just a minute too. But getting back to El Dorado, a company like it is looking for you to do the heavy work to de-risk the project, to show what's there, and then they or somebody else comes in later, ideally as either a joint venture partner, somebody takes it off your hands, it's a developer, and you walk away with along with the other Amex shareholders with a nice fat payday. We don't know exactly, of course, how that's going to turn out yet. But first things first, El Dorado, as you saw here on the screen, has recently taken a decent position in Amex. May not be the last one that they do, but it's a testimony to the fact that in that area, and we can't put the cart before the horse, but with the amount of drilling that you've done, with the assay results you've come out with, there really aren't that many projects that are going to, I think, show the grade and scale of what is looming here. And people know it. And again, I think that's why your share price has jumped up 50 or so percent in just the last few months, is that people are starting to get a whiff of what's coming. So again, here I want to show though the overall area, and you can kind of walk us through a quick Cliff Notes version of the different deposits. But time after another, as I followed Amex's story, you come up with new discoveries, you have new zones, and within this whole Perron project, and in the 3.5 kilometer give or take area that you've done most of your work in, you've got numerous targets that have led to big discoveries, most all of them high-grade discoveries. Walk us through maybe the pecking order of those, if you would, Victor.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want me to go by zone, or like?
Sure, whatever would make sense. How things kind of evolved. We started here, but then we figured we'd go over here, and lo and behold, we found more, and it just kind of get a never-ending thing.
Yeah. So the main discovery, the actual high grade discovery, was made at the end of 2018. That's what there was already known zones, like the Denise zone was already known. But when it came down to exploration, we discovered the high grade zone. The minute we discovered the high grade zone, we started drilling up, down, up and down along it. We wanted to make sure it wasn't just this little pot of gold. And from that you're getting signatures, right? That's how you do more geophysics and more signatures, saying, okay, look, I got this, let's do geophysics on top of this. So what exactly does that bring along? And that is actually what led us to find all the other zones. And basically the concentration's been on the eastern gold zone. So we had just recently, there was the Team Zone discovery. Before that, there was the Gray Cat. There's a Gratien zone. Going west, it's basically unexplored area. And unfortunately for the fire, there were fires, but Those fires now, the government is doing reforestation in the area, so they've created roads where places where we had to access it only by helicopter in the past. Now we can just drive there, and they've basically clear cut the area right now in order to regenerate the forest. So that's what's been happening over the years. You know, when you look at we've drilled the 400,000 meters. Windfall, Osisko Mining's Windfall, which is about 80 kilometers just east of us. They've drilled 2 million meters.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
realize it was that much.
oh yeah. I wanted to. I believe they were probably the top project when it came to drilling. They no longer have that. They're at the economic study stage. I mean, they're advancing and developing the project. They're sitting with
Right.
7 million meters. So.
Wild. You know, that the story about the fires last year, which of course everybody followed that story of how bad the fires were in Canada during the 2023 season. And I remember you told me along the way that for a while you guys couldn't get in there and do any work. Then the fires dissipated and you were able to go in. And incredibly, they were, I hate to sound mercenary about it, a blessing in disguise in a way, because in that heavily forested area, it revealed a lot more to you guys as far as potential targets down the road and stuff like that. As you said, the province is cleaning things up. There'll be a few more roads in there and whatnot. So eventually that's that much more blue sky that's going to be easier potentially to realize for the company. I don't want to spend too much time on it, Victor, but you said that you know, in the upcoming resource estimate, there will not be any credits for base metals or anything like that. This is all going to be gold, to keep that story straight. But you guys did a while back in the QF zone have some pretty nice polymetallic intercepts, and that's something that's potentially on the table for the future. And not surprisingly, because you're in an area that's not only storied for gold, but for a lot of these polymetallic and VMS deposits as well. You're what, how many clicks from Normetal and their old complex?
Yeah, 4 kilometers.
Yeah, you literally next to it, and that was a great base metals project. So give us just a little bit of an idea of what the future might be for the base metal exploration.
Absolutely. So we've dedicated one drill to that area, and actually, when I say dedicated, we've dedicated one drill on and off. I really didn't want to confuse the story, and you know, it is a copper rich discovery. So from time to time, we will release out. You know, we will release results from the copper zone or the copper rich VMS zone. When you look at Normetal, for example, they had 10 million tons with the 2% copper and then a bunch of other credits, gold, silver. You know, 2% copper in today's market is pretty good when you talk about 10 million tons. And
That's a huge number.
It is a huge, and it's not just the tons. It's the fact that you have the smelter just an hour and a half away from there, and that makes a big difference because you actually don't need a big deposit when you have a smelter an hour and a half away.
Sure, and it's nice when you've got, even if it's an average size or small size one, 2% copper. There again, here's my hand. Here's how many people in the world are mining 2% copper, pretty much right now. Victor, last September, I think getting everybody prepped who has followed Amex and all of this drilling and all of these great results for quite a while now, you announced a pretty good boost to your team, your management team, focusing on people with technical and engineering skills for obvious reasons. You're about to put out, wrapping up all of this last several years of exploration and drilling, a resource estimate that I think is going to be a major wow moment for a lot of people. So tell us about your thought process in putting together that team, and then we're going to get into the characteristics, at least generally, as you can give them today, of the resource estimate coming.
Absolutely. So in that, we formed a technical advisory team. There's 2 mining engineers. There's Pierre-Luc Richard. He's a resource engineer. So he was one of the resource geologists that signed the 43-101 at Windfall. So since there's a lot of similarities with those 2 deposits, I think it was very important that we brought him along. And Jacqueline Leroux, she's a permitting specialist for environmental and permitting. She she's currently right now with Troilus on a full-time basis, doing environment and permitting for them. She was responsible for permitting the Gold Corp's Eleanor project up in the James Bay. So you can imagine the complexity of that, and she was able to do that. So for me, it's very important to put in the a good quality team. Jonathan Gagne, mining engineer, right now he's at the Greenstone project in Ontario. It's a $1.5 billion build that's coming out. They've pretty much been on time and on budget. So it's important to bring in quality people on your side.
And again, you're doing that because you're about to release a resource estimate. It's something that I know for a while you were back and forth with, do we do it now? Do we wait? Part of that is what the market expects. But I think that you're getting to the point, or you have got to the point, Victor, and correct me if my characterization is incorrect, where you're fairly confident that the numbers you're going to be putting out are going to get pretty much anybody's attention that's looking for, future source for material for gold.
Absolutely. Like Eldorado again, they're a high grade, low cost producer. They've been in the data room, just like there's a lot of others in the data room, and they had to have liked for them to come in and jump ahead with an investment ahead of a resource calculation along with an economic study. Tells you a lot, because that means they really had to like what they saw. Also, we're going to be adding a member of Eldorado's team on our technical advisory team, and I really welcome that, because that's gonna really help a lot.
Well, that's neat. And besides Eldorado, and I'll repeat it again, folks, if you look at how Amex has performed in the market in the last few months since its low last fall, this is starting to get serious for people. Everybody's followed these drill intercepts for a while. Gee, this is great, but then they kind of go away. Who cares? The market's not that great right now. There's not a resource estimate. All of a sudden, when there's going to be a resource estimate and then an economic study, this becomes now we're real moment. And it's going to be interesting to me, and I'm sure to you, to see what further players may emerge, because there's not going to be too many, if any, projects near term that would be getting toward the development ready phase as you guys with the gold resource you're going to come out. Now, besides that, and folks, there's a lot of moving parts here. We're giving it a quick look today because right after Amex comes out with the resource estimate, I'm going to have Victor back. We're going to dive into it and more about what we'll know at that time, which we don't know today, or which isn't public today. But I know you mentioned recently, Victor, that besides the resource estimate, there will be an economic study that's going to be pretty much right on the heels or in tandem with that, to underscore just how robust and economic you think this is going to be. Tell us about that strategy and what people can expect, at least generally to see. Not the numbers, obviously, but generally to see with that.
Yeah, it's very important to put out an economic study immediately after it, because you really want to show the economics of it. I think the fastest I'll be able to put one out is within 45 days. Within 45 days after I put out the resource calculation, like we've already started. We are working hard on putting it out as fast as possible. When you look at this project, location. You're right on the side of a town. Like from Montreal or from Toronto, you're able to get there 7.5, 8 hours. It's not like I got to build miles and miles of roads to get there. You have water, you have electricity. One other thing that's really important is you have a labor force. The town of Normetal is about 700 inhabitants right now. At its peak, when they were actually mining, there were over 4,000. You go 20 kilometers down in the town of Lassar, there is an airport. That town's about 12,000 residents. That town supplies a lot of the Abitibi. If you go 1 hour south of that, You have Rwanda with a little over 40,000, with a 40,000 population. So labor is really, labor is really important. If I come back to the project itself, you have an electrical substation within kilometers, like it's maybe 4 or 5 kilometers from where the project is. That electrical substation supplies electricity to the Casa Berardi mine, and it supplies the electricity to the city of Normantal. And Normantal used to be an old mining town. They welcome mining, responsible mining, because that's what we will be doing. So putting together an economic study to show the viability of the project, because this is really, based on the results. When you're seeing these results that we've been putting out, this is going to be a high grade mine. It should be a high grade mine. And that's usually when you're talking about high grade, it should be low cost. And especially when you look at all the infrastructure around it that's already there. So I don't need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to build roads.
Right.
A lot of it's there already.
Well, I'm greatly looking forward to that. And folks, again, we're going to have Victor back to tie all of this up when the resource estimate is published. You'll be in between now and then getting more meat, a little bit more background on the company in my upcoming report on precious metals, which will contain a profile of Amex. Here again on the screen, if you're not on my mailing list already, make sure that you get on it. And make sure you spend some time at Amex's site as well. Follow them on social media, get on their mailing list. But folks, those of you especially listening who have followed the precious metals space for a while, especially if you follow the stocks, we all know, and we are all painfully aware, that there has not been a greater disconnect. I haven't seen it in 40 plus years. You've never seen it, Victor. There's not been a greater disconnect between the price of equities in this space. I'm not talking about, $5 million market cap, run-of-the-mill lifestyle companies that just continue on a wing and a prayer. I mean, it's substantial companies with substantial news and projects like Amex has got. But again, I can't stress enough, there's a reason why this thing, unlike most in the last few months, has been ratcheting upwards slowly but steadily. People have an idea that not many weeks hence, there is going to be news that's going to be a jaw dropper, and that's going to really validate all of the work that Victor and his team have done. So make sure you become acquainted with that. Follow Amex, follow yours truly. And again, we'll be back once you bring out that resource estimate, and we'll talk about from that point. We'll be able to talk in a little bit more detail about numbers, about potential development scenarios and all kinds of things. But this is some fun stuff. And this is going to be the culmination of the last several years of hard work for you and Kelly Malcolm, your head geologist, everybody else. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm happier than hell for you, I got to say, that we're getting to this point, Victor. So thanks much. And as again, we're reporting this on the 15th of February. I'll see Victor next week from now when we're recording it at Mines and Money. This video will be out ahead of that. And we'll get a lot more detail and get a chance to say hello in person. So Victor, thanks for coming on today. And I'm looking forward to the next several weeks, which are going to be the probably most fun time that you've had with this company.
Absolutely. That's great.
You take care.
All right. Thank you.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.